that. Great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get us started for today, and then people can jump in. I'm Jonathan, and I'm joined with Georgia. We're Candu. Actually, we have personalities outside of Candu, but we do a lot of this. And we are basically a native web builder, which is basically a way to build a website or a web component that you can add into an existing website or web app. So think of it like a Squarespace or a Wix, but something that you can actually use in the website you already have, in case you didn't create one from scratch. Cool. So today in the webinar, what we're going to be talking about, oh, I got a QA. Great. Fantastic. Okay, so we're having a couple of issues with, George is going to be working on the QA throughout and will be our help. Feel free to drop anything in the chat as we go along. This is going to be a very interactive session. I'm sorry if you're planning on just sitting back and relaxing. You can do that too, but you'll get more out of it if you are here to kind of create something. Fantastic. All right. So I'll give you a quick, so how this is going to work is I'm going to give you a quick overview of Candu. We're then going to show off a really amazing, basically web page that was created by one of our early customers, CNET. And then we're going to be creating your own inspiration hub for your own application. Why would you want to do this? Candu is really good, or the purpose of Candu ultimately is to give control back to people who can't code. So if your interface has been stuck statically for a while and you've been waiting for engineering or product to make that one change, that a new step in a checklist, or add that new piece of content, you can use Candu to go ahead and do that yourself. We're really aiming to empower the rest of us, people like me who can't code, to actually make changes that they would like in their application. Fantastic. Okay, and let us get into it. Okay, so Candu again, a way to, it's really a way to basically create your own web components. And really how this got started is we realized that I've done a lot of things in B2B SaaS companies. One of the things I've done a lot of is send a lot of emails. There's nothing wrong with emails, but people don't read them. And so one key concept in Candu is to move all of your messages, your content, the things that matter that you want users to see, and really publish them to the homepage of your application, or at least to a place that users are more likely to find them. So instead of asking users to kind of branch off and go to your help center or to your learning management system, which of course they should do, we want to bring the horse to water. Or actually, really what we're doing is bring water to the horse. Apologies, I'm going to have a lot of really bad analogies. That's just the nature of the game. Great. The other kind of key thing about Candu is that we help you not just create that component yourself, but then you can also swap it out. So the user can be on the same URL, and then if they're a new user or a returning user, we can give them kind of different user experiences. So you can do it yourself, and you can make it more personalized. And that's really all there is to it. I think a lot of folks are probably familiar. I imagine pretty much everyone on this call actually is familiar with overlays, modals, and hotspots. We are a little bit different than them, so I just want to spend just a minute explaining the difference. Candu doesn't pop up on top of the page, which is a great way to sort of draw users' attention. Candu is really intended to help you change the page itself. And so we are much more like a Wix or a Webflow or a Squarespace than we are like a Pendo or an Intercom or a WalkMe. We're probably a better fit for, say, like a customer dashboard, and not as good for something like, hey, the system's crashing, I need you to call your CSM. Cool. All right, so let's get into what we can actually make. So let's talk about a customer dashboard. So one of the things that our customers have made is, one of our customers, CNET, has created basically an inspiration hub. CNET is a super cool company. They really help folks basically create videos. They basically help them create employee crowdsourced videos. And it's really about storytelling. And so like a lot of software providers, they have a really interesting challenge, which is that they have a really powerful, very cool video creation software, but they need to inspire people to make more stuff, right? They have people come in with one use case, they do one thing in the application, and then maybe they don't know about or think about kind of other uses or use cases. So one of the things that CNET wanted to figure out was, how do we help users who come into the application get inspired? Sorry, not as good for. Oh, sorry, I got a quick question on Q&A about what not as good for. I think that was about what is Candu good for versus what are pop-ups good for. And the real difference is basically, are you trying to pull the user's awareness with a pop-up, like, hey, pay attention to me? Or do you want the user to explore the way they would with a normal web page? Do you want it to feel like a native part of the application, or do you want it to be interruptive? And there are kind of good use cases for both. Cool. Okay, so this is the CNET dashboard, but let's actually see it, because I think it's better to see it live. They've done a really beautiful job styling it. This is in their content hub, their inspiration hub. So this is actually a page in their application. And what they've actually kind of consolidated here are, stories from CNET. Hey, here's kind of some of our thought leadership. They have these inspiration tiles, good things to get started with. And they also included a link to their release notes, so that's front and center, and then some tutorials. How do you actually get started? Everything is branded to look just like CNET, which is really cool. But the main thing and most important thing is that now that this is built with these different code blocks, anyone on the CNET team can update it and change it. So that means that when you have a new tutorial or a new update, instead of going back to your engineering team and saying, hey, please update this, you can do it yourself. And that's really the power of Candu. I like to say, if you can build a wedding website, you can use Candu, and that's what we're really going after. Cool. This is the Candu extension. I'm gonna ask you guys to use it at some point later today. And we're gonna go ahead and actually create a little piece of content and then inject it into one of our pages as well. Really cool. All right. So let's get into the interactive part of Candu. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is actually to log into Candu. If you haven't created an account yet, please do so. And George is going to paste in the sign-up link, which is at candu.ai. Hopefully folks have seen it at this point. Just the get started free button or log in if you already have an account. Great. And Georgia can help if there's any account related challenges. Cool. All right. All right. So we are not going to create the full amazing CNET dashboard today. We're just going to focus on one little tile. So what we've done is we've actually kind of recreated a version of one of these for us to play around with. Let's go over there into the Candu search showcase. So this is a fake website we made just to demonstrate what it could be like to actually use to create a Candu component yourself. And so everything in this white card, actually everything right here, is what we're going to create today in our editor. Really cool. Let's turn this guy on so you can kind of see everything within the purple is kind of rendered with Candu. Fantastic. One other thing is, I know sometimes it can be difficult to follow along. So we've actually created a user guide as well, which Georgia will add into the chat. So in case you get tired of following along, you can just, look at the GIFs as well. Fantastic. All right. Okay. So this is what we're going to be working on to create today. It is basically the hub. It's one card. In CNET's case, they actually created several of these and then put them together into a dashboard. And so we're going to break it apart into little pieces and just try to create this one embedded content hub. Great. Okay, so the first thing to do is to get to this page. So let's make sure we can get there. So to start with, assuming that you've been able to log in, you should have landed on the dashboard page. Some of you may have been asked to skip ahead. If you want to skip the tutorial, that's fine. This dashboard page, like the CNET page, is all rendered with Candu. So again, we're going to kind of see that purple bar pop up. Right here, you can kind of see everything that's made with Candu. Fantastic. Candu can be used for things like announcing this webinar. And at the very end of the call, we're going to update the webinar link because the webinar will now have closed, and we'll add the recording to that card as well. Great. Fantastic. We make it do with a lot of things like checklists as well, which we'll cover in other sessions. But today is all about getting educational and training content into the app. Great. From dashboard, I'm going to go over to content, which will pull up a list of all my content. In this case, I'm going to say create new because I want to make a new and empty version. And we'll start with a blank canvas. You can always look through the templates that we have below. There's a lot of different content types to choose from. Again, thinking about how to get into a creative mindset with your UI. Great. Let's create some content. We're going to call this the Inspiration Hub. And let's add it to categories. That's fine. Oh, gotta make it a new one. Inspiration Hub 2. I'm really inspiring with the way I name things. Cool. Okay, so quick orientation for the editor. If you're familiar with design tools, this is basically like a simplified version. If you're familiar with design tools, this will be a lot of fun. So on the left-hand side, we have the what we call the palette, like a painting palette, which has all the different blocks that you can pull in. It's got layouts, text, containers, my personal favorite, the checklist, as well as elements like buttons and media. What we're first going to want to do is actually add a very simple node type, which is text. We're going to go ahead and pull that into the canvas. So you basically drag and drop. Candu is all about the drag and the drop. Oh, let me reload the editor. I think I'm probably testing an asset right now that I shouldn't be testing. Give me 1 second. Technical support standing by. See if that worked for me. Great. I may have to hand this to Georgia. I was testing an asset earlier for a new RTE node, a rich text editor, and I might still be in that testing format. So one more time. Great. No, I'm still having challenges. Hey, Georgia, can I flip over to you? Is that cool?
Yep, just a second.
Cool. Great.
All right, let's do this. I'm gonna have you.
I'll talk while you
direct me around. Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get started making the rich text editor. The first thing we're going to do is drag in some text. As you can see, when you have the node highlighted, you can then use the inline editor, which let you bold or italicize things, as well as the toolbox on the right, which you can use to basically set up all of your different conditions for that type of node. In this case, I want it to be an H1. It's perfect. Let's call it the hub. That's great. I like to add emojis, but maybe George doesn't, so we'll see how that goes. Great. So you don't have all of your options here. You can't actually set up your the size of the font. You can't really set the font style. And that's because the way that Candu works is we actually have you set up a style guide so that whatever you create with Candu will always be brand consistent. So in this case, we're using the Candu style guide. It's our fonts, our colors, but anyone can basically set up their own style guide to match. Maybe Georgia, you can quickly show where someone can find that and what they could set up. Great, under settings, and then under style guide, perfect.
And so you'll see in this one we have, you can go in and change the typography, and then that will be brand consistent across everything that you do. You can change the colors. I know at a previous job, I spent so much time pulling up our brand guidelines to like recopy the href. And so now you can just always have those in one place. And those will just pull through into the editor. So for us, you'll see our brand colors come through whenever we're working on this content. But you can go through anytime and update all of this so that it looks like what you would expect on your site.
Cool. If you're doing this live and setting up your brand colors, make sure to clear your cache. It'll actually recreate the style guide for you live in the editor as well. Great. All right, let's go back to
so many of these.
Maybe it's a good time to use search,
Yeah, that would be smart.
I know, I'm like, oh, why did we make that feature? Oh, that's a good point. We'll make a lot of content. Amazing. Great. So the first thing we want to do is create the hub. And so let's actually add one more typography node in the see popular ideas to kickstart your passion projects. Add a little paragraph below. Cool. All right, so one quick thing, the editor uses all your quick keys. So if you copy and paste, edit and delete, you can do all that stuff as you might expect. You also have the option to use these kind of quick arrows here to duplicate, undo and redo. Candu also works with a full history record. So any changes that you've made will auto save. And then you can always restore old versions. So in case you've done something horrible, you can always go back and update it. Also, if you have a colleague that's changed something that you don't like, you can figure out who did that as well. Fantastic. All right. So if we can actually flip to the main Candu showcase, I think it'd be helpful to see this versus the finished product. And then we can talk about how do we get from here to there.
Yeah, give me 1 second to pull it up.
Great. Great. And we got a question about, will it ever be syncable with a design system in Figma? Good question. More on this to follow. I will say that right now, every element, every button, every link, every badge can be styled with CSS as well. That's actually what CNET did. They did a full custom design given their very, I would say, beautiful and like playful style. So yes, I can certainly imagine a world where that will happen. Cool. The way to really think about Candu is that it's not creating the components per se. What we're actually doing is helping you take the components you've already made and then using those to create user experiences that are published to actual users. So we're kind of like in the train of design, or the step past the component creation and into publishing. Great. Say I answered live. Is that learning to zoom over? Cool. All right. So the next thing we want to do is actually create a node that will basically be, or a container that will have the different content types. So in this case, how to start a blog. Great. Let's go ahead and start with actually a container, a panel that you want layout. Actually, add a panel instead of a card, but this is personal preference. Great. Okay, so a panel is just a big layout. It's just a space for us to fit stuff. And the first thing we're going to want to fit in there is an image on the left-hand side. So we've actually prepared a set of assets for you. I'm going to drop these in the chat so that everyone can see them. Perfect. In case you want to follow along and add your assets. Once you add in an image of any kind, which you can drag in, upload, or link, it will actually create for you a media library that you can then reuse throughout. I know this is really important for a lot of folks who have like specific icons that have been designed. So at least you can kind of keep your media intact. Cool. Georgia, thank you for demonstrating the drag and drop ability. Looks great. And that might already be in the media library. I feel like I've made this a couple of times. Fantastic. Looks great. Okay. So we've just added an image. The first thing we want to do is basically triple check the sizing. So images can obviously get stretched in different ways. We want to make sure we set this up correctly. We have the option to set the width and the height. And you can use either a percentage of the total available space on the web page or precise pixels, kind of depending on what your how you want it to look. Great. Let's make this a little small. Looks great. If you ever mess up, you can always hit reset to default size, which will restore its original size. Perfect. To access the media library, you can also use a little tiny link right to the right here. Let me go ahead and draw that for you. Oh, sorry, click on the image one more time. Perfect. Right there. Great. And this will pull up your media library where you'll be able to find all your pre-existing images. Oh, looks great. Okay. Okay, so we've added our image. Now we want to go ahead and add our text and our button. Can you show Steamer really fast, Georgia, just so they can see the difference again? Cool. We got the image, I got a text, and we got a button. Fantastic. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is think about how do we add the text in, and how we want to keep it consistently in the same place. So we want to actually apply a layout.
And actually, first, what we're trying to think about here is that we want, as you can see in this content, we want all the content to be going left to right as opposed to top to bottom in this particular case. So what we're going to do first is actually at this top level layout that we're looking at, we're going to change the content direction from column, which tells it to set any new thing you add to the page below the thing above it, to actually set it to rows, which tells Candu that instead of having things go 1, 2, 3, it goes 1, 2, 3 into basically a column layout. So for this top level layout, we want that. And then because the text is stacked one on top of the other, over here, we're actually going to add a second layout to the right of our image. And we're going to set that one to column so that our text will stack one on top of the other.
Perfect. Nesting layouts is probably the most powerful and can be the trickiest thing. If you have a web design background, I'm sure you're very familiar with Flexbox layouts and have used these throughout. We are now giving the power of the Flexbox over to the rest of us to make what we will. Great. Fantastic. Maybe we'll hit Control. Yeah, we can copy and paste that guy. And then we'll add in a paragraph below as well. Great. All right. We're just moving right along here. This is perfect. Okay. So the next most important thing that we want to do is actually add in the button. So the button is going to be to the far right of the Welcome to the Hub. And so what we're going to do is actually grab an element and then just drag it all the way over there on the far side. Perfect. One nice thing about Candu is that every button, every link, every view is tracked natively, so that as soon as you add an element to the canvas and it's been published to a user, we'll start tracking who looked at it, how many times they look at it, all that kind of good stuff. So you don't have to worry about setting up your analytics tracking. It's all done natively for you. Once it's published, you can actually see all of the analytics right on your analytics tab. Great. This will be blank so far because I don't think it's published yet. Great. No data yet. So we're doing the best we can. Great. All right. So Georgia, would you actually click on the button right there? Perfect. Change me. Okay, we can do that. Let's just make it an arrow. Good enough. We can come back and style this later.
There's a prettier arrow, but I don't remember how to make it.
Perfect. So this button is purple. I think it's a little bit too loud. It's a primary button. You probably don't want to reuse that throughout the entire card. So in the toolbox, we can shift it to, just click around, play around to different button types. In this case, a tertiary would work great. And let's keep it, maybe change the outline to from solid to light. Perfect. All right, the button looks good. It's we have left the most important part, which is actually add the link. Where is it going to go? If you want to click on the interactions tab. Okay, so you got 3 good options here. You can send them to a URL, which we can add here on click. Great. You can send an email, so it could actually fire off a support email, for example, or you can launch a guide. We have integrations with a few guide providers, including Pendo and Intercom, so you can actually link a product tour into one of an element in Candu. Great. In this case, we want to use an open URL in a new tab. Perfect. Put in Candu or whatever you'd like. Great. All right. The last thing is basically to add an interaction label. This is just an added step. If you want to be able to easily find this event later, it's just a helpful thing to basically check. But don't worry, even if you don't do this step, Candu will already create a name for it. But it'll just be not quite as descriptive as you might want it to be. Cool. All right. The last thing I want to do with the button is actually move it a little bit down because I think it's a little bit too high and that hard. Georgia, will you demonstrate the power of the content alignment options?
Absolutely. So as you can see here, right now our layout is taking up the entire part of the page, and that's because we have this child layout behavior set to grow if possible, which tells Candu to try and take up as much space as is available. So first, because we want these to be in nice little rows, we're going to actually turn that option off so that everything fits in the same bucket. And then we're going to go through these different content alignment options to test out what we think looks best. So in this particular case, I think what I want is all of these things to align across the middle. So I'll try out, so if I set everything to center, then all of my content will be nicely center aligned and it looks like this nice card that I'm looking for. I can also play around a little bit with the horizontal alignments. So I can put space between all of the elements, which doesn't really seem to change much because it's all built to stretch out in this entire thing. But if for instance, we were just playing in, let's say this layout, we could move a lot of this content around to realign it left, right, and center.
Great. There's no wrong answers here. Actually, there are lots of wrong answers. You make stuff look terrible if you so choose, but don't worry, you can always redo it, play with stuff, move it around. Candu is meant to be a creative canvas for you. Nothing will get published to users until you hit that bright green publish button. So for right now, we get to mix and match our content types. Great. Okay, I think actually this is pretty good, Georgia. What do you think? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I feel like we got it pretty close to what we were looking for here.
Nice. Okay, so then let's do my favorite part of every piece of creating content. Let's just duplicate the thing.
Awesome. Yeah. And so with Candu, we have this little cute duplicate button right up here. It'll duplicate at whatever level you're at. So if I wanted to duplicate just this image, I could hit it and it would duplicate just this image. But if I take the whole layout and hit this button, I get to have a whole nother version of the layout. So it's a really nice way if you're trying to do something like this where everything's similarly aligned.
Oh, Georgia, I think you put yourself on mute. Can you take yourself off mute?
Sorry. Technical difficulties. But yeah, so what I was saying was if you want to get a line of content that looks really similar all the way across, it's really helpful to duplicate at the level of the layout, which is yet another reason why we find layouts so helpful. So we can actually do this one more time.
Do it a bunch.
And now we have, do it a million times. And so now actually all we have to do, where before we had to think about how everything was aligned and how layouts looked, all we need to do is go in and we can update each of these images to pull from these different assets, and we can update each of the headlines and links in the buttons. So once you've actually laid out one block of content, it moves really quickly to create something like this. And if I were to go in and, for instance, create, like in CNET's case, if CNET found some user-generated content that they thought was really exciting, or if they came out with a new webinar, instead of needing to ask their engineering team to make an update to the homepage, they can actually just go in, duplicate this block that they already have, and just link it to this new set of content and add a new image. So it's actually as simple as that for them to update that dashboard.
And that is the main magic Candu, that the updating is very fast once it's been set up. Fantastic. Cool. Okay, I think this looks good. Should we talk about how publishing works? Great.
Yeah.
So once you're happy with your content, all you have to do is go ahead and hit that green publish button. Okay, we're about to hit the next interactive part of the session. I would love, hit that button, great. So if you are following along right now, you will have gotten a little notification telling you to download the Chrome extension. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, I'm going to paste it in the channel. This is my favorite part of Candu. Okay, I have lots of favorite parts, but this is my actual favorite part of Candu. I'll put this in the chat right here. Great. Georgia, can I steal the screen back really quickly? I'll just take it from you. I have the power. Fantastic. Cool. Okay, so the Candu for Chrome extension, the way to add it is really simple. It's this little purple guy right here. You go to the puzzle, once you've hit download, you get the little puzzle piece right here and then pin it to your top bar. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin it really quickly. Now that you have this, you basically have a demo site of Candu. So you can use this to basically see what Candu will look like on any page. So let's just see how the inauguration is going. Oh, it's going great. Biden's our president, good news, or I should say news. And then I can go ahead and add in George's demo content onto the page. We use a click to drop, which is kind of fun. You can actually see what it will look like in context. It'll reconstitute a little bit based on what styles are natively in the page. Candu doesn't use an iframe. It's quite literally building the page with the page. So you can see things are a little bit adjusted. But yeah, you can actually build content and place it in another web page. The way that Candu works, though, is that to get it actually published, so without this blue bar, you need to basically include a div on the page so that we know where to publish it, which Steamery has built into it. So once it's installed, it'll automatically get sent to wherever that div is. But the Chrome extension at least gives you a sense of what it could look like in case you want to test it across different content formats. Great. Let's go back.
The Chrome extension is great when you're talking to your team about where you ultimately want to publish Candu. And then it allows you to sort of create this test content. You can show your developers or your PMs or your friends at work what this content would look like hypothetically. And then when you're ready, you have a very quick installation process, sort of similar to what you would do if you were going to install something like a pop-up. And then once it's installed, you can actually use the Chrome extension to preview content before you publish it. And at that point, the Chrome extension will pick up all the styles you've set up in your style guide and will really show you exactly what the content's going to look like before it goes live to your users.
Fantastic. Great. Okay, I think at this point we've covered preview. The very last step is publishing. So Georgia, if you want to pull that modal up one more time, we can show folks how the publishing piece works. Great. Once you're happy with your previewed content, you can hit preview right there on the purple button.
Yeah, so in this case, yeah, I would skip preview because I am excited about how it looks. And if I click here to publish without previewing, I get one more option to make sure I feel confident in it, and then I can hit publish. There's also one more step. So in Candu, as we talked about in Jonathan's original slides, you actually can decide on what audience you want to publish content to. So in some cases, like in CNET's case right now, they want to publish that dashboard to all of their users. There's a future state where maybe they want to publish different pieces of content to different users based on a named use case that they might have come up with. So in that case, you can actually, instead of just hitting publish to one set of users, you can go into this segments pane. I'm actually going to change out our workspace to show this more easily. You can also have many different workspaces to publish content in different places. So the workspace we were just in is the one that publishes this original dashboard that everyone sees when they log into Candu. This new workspace is the one that publishes to the Steamery website. So ultimately, if you want to have Candu on many pages of your application, that is totally possible. So here we're on the segments page. So if, for instance, I wanted to create a segment for, here you can see we have one segment for new account admins, a new account Hooli, pre-sale Hooli. You can actually create a lot of different user segments based on data that either you're capturing or that's coming in through your CRM, so that you can give people either personalized content or groups of people content that really suits their use case more specifically.
Yeah. And I think especially when you're moving content into the app, a good thing to think about is like, are there specific industries or verticals that you have content for? Are there specific use cases that the user has already done or you'd like them to do when you want to kind of push them in that direction? Great. We can cover segmentation a little bit more later, but I think this has hopefully been a helpful overview to see how easy it is to actually create a live page. The last thing I'll say on this topic is we've now gone through the webinar. Actually, Georgia, could you leave the dashboard up? We've just completed this, so that's great. What I can do next is actually add a recording of this webinar into that webinar tile on the dashboard.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull that up quickly.
Cool. We can show you how something like that could work. Again, this is a new world of like dynamic content where you don't need to wait for your development team to update the front end. With great power comes great responsibility. And so I think it'll be a fun way, a new world where people like me and Georgia, who again can't code anything, can actually go ahead and make these sorts of updates to Candu itself. Really cool. Georgia, just the dashboard page is fine. Yeah, perfect. Great. So you see this little live demo card. We'll be actually updating it following this meeting with the recording, so you can go ahead and click on it and then actually follow along with the materials that we covered today. Really cool. The last thing I'll leave you with is that a dashboard page or a page at all can be a little daunting. George and I are really happy to kind of dive in and actually talk to you more about your specific use case, kind of some of the content that you already have, and think through what format makes sense. Every one of you is going to have a different user experience that you're going to want to create. Some of you might even have multiple user experiences that you want to create, and that's okay too. We're more than happy to work with you to figure out, like, hey, what am I trying to show? How do I want users to move through this? And what is the right format for really holding users' attention? So I'm going to leave in here an onboarding audit Calendly link. Feel free to grab our time where we learn more about user experiences by working with other folks. We're more than happy to do that. There's no charge for the audit at all. Great. Okay. And I think that covers everything that we wanted to get through today. Thank you so much for coming to Candu's very first webinar. We're really delighted to have you. And we cannot wait to see what you create. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.